It just took a bell, and when the bell sounded, the YouTube came live, so you can watch either way. We live in a time when people are wondering about the difference between the spiritual and the physical. And for a long time, the idea has been that the spiritual is up there somewhere and the physical is down here somewhere. But today we're looking at the Celtic tradition, which is alive among us in some forms. And one of the things about the physical world and the spiritual world, in the Celtic understanding, they're all mixed together in one. And so I want you to hold that together, hold that in your minds as we go forward today. Secondly, in the Celtic world, there is this concept about where do you meet God. And because the physical is also the spiritual, there's a concept of thin places. Now, I think a thin place might be along a water's edge or in a deep forest or in a garden that you've spent time in. But it
or even in a great cathedral.
It could even, yes, it certainly could be in a great cathedral. So there are such things as thin places.
And I have to add to that, or a little teeny tiny church.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be just the great.
Absolutely.
Teeny, tiny church.
A teeny tiny church where the 3 or 4 people there know each other. That's a beautiful thing also. The first reading that we're going to offer is from Genesis, and it tells a story about Jacob and the importance of place. And listen for all of the connections to our world, to our spiritual and physical, and how they blend together, because it's kind of like the Celtic in a way.
So I will start with this reading from Genesis. Jacob came to a certain place and stayed there for the night, because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a ladder up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it.
I just have to interrupt because I love the mention of a stone for a pillow. And I've got this beautiful stone, which is very round, and I think it could probably fit someone's neck or head.
If it were a little bit bigger, it
a little bigger, yeah.
Yeah, just right along
but
your neck.
It's part of the natural world, and it's part of the witness of the Creator.
It is
everywhere. So there's a response that we'll make from a Celtic theologian by the name of John Bailey. He says, "For earth and sea and sky, for scudding cloud and singing bird, we may also ask that the remembrance of the blessed life that once was lived out on this common earth under these ordinary skies may remain with us in all the tasks and duties of today."
That is something that we could take into ourselves every single day, every single morning, every morning, help us to, we're living here on this ordinary earth, this, the skies are there, but may that all remain with us and be part of us for everything we do during the day and all the duties, the tasks and duties of this day. Continuing with the reading, when Jacob woke from his sleep, he said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." And he was afraid, and he said, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven."
Those words are often echoed as somebody enters a church building. Sometimes you'll see them inscribed in a plaque or in stone. But remember, this is being said out in the wilderness.
Yes.
Where there's a rock for a headpiece. And so anyway, John Bailey responds with a prayer. Almighty Creator, is it you who made the land and the sea? The world cannot comprehend your glory in song bright and melodious, even though the grass and trees should sing out all your wonders. Oh, my true Lord. So I guess we're going to be thinking about some of the places on the earth where people have truly encountered wonder in the physical world, but it's always pointed them to something beyond physical.
And we're looking at Celtic spirituality and Christianity today. And there are three places that I would like to bring up in connection with that. And I just talked, this isn't going to be a long lecture. You know, when we talked about this just last night and said, you know, this could be like a 2-year long seminar that you would be taking on these three places: Stonehenge, Avebury Circle, and Newgrange. So Stonehenge and Avebury Circle are both in Great Britain, in England. Newgrange is in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland. It's just north of Dublin. Stonehenge, you know, this isn't something, these great monuments were not built with machines. They had amazing tricks that they must have used in order to haul the rocks around to construct. Stonehenge, some of the building materials came from miles and miles and miles away and showed up in Stonehenge. And it was built between, it started in around 3000 BC, and a lot of its construction, its original construction, was done within that next 1,000 years. So 3000 to 2000 BC. And it could have been a burial ground, but not necessarily. But there is some evidence that Stonehenge could have been a burial ground. Definitely a ceremonial site. Definitely a ceremonial site. But around Stonehenge, there is a circular ditch and a bank. And there's also a ditch and a bank like that around Avebury Circle. And so this was maybe a protective sort of thing, maybe an embankment so that, you know, the waters would run in a certain way. I don't really know, but that's a marked part of both Stonehenge and Avebury. The standing stones, probably a lot of us have seen images or have been to Stonehenge, but with these huge standing rocks, and then the lintels that lay across two of the standing rocks. So these are mammoth constructions. This spot celebrates, or it doesn't celebrate, but people go to Stonehenge to celebrate the summer solstice because it is laid out in such a way that on that longest day of the year, the sun comes up and it comes up above one of the standing rocks that's on the outside circle, one of the heel stones. And the sun comes up, and it doesn't do that on the other days of the year.
I can picture that.
Yeah, but on the longest day, on June 21st, that's where the sun comes up.
And so they designed the Stonehenge and Avebury Circle with that in mind, that they're trying to orient themselves to a particular day sunrise.
Right, exactly. But Avebury, on the other hand, is about 17 miles from Stonehenge. And it marks the spring and the fall equinoxes. Anyway, there are two, spring and fall. So this is, again, as I said, this is a circular bank and ditch that goes around this as well. And it is the largest stone circle in Britain. It is, what did it say, 14 times larger than Stonehenge. Wow. And there are 3 rings of stone that make up Avebury. So Avebury, the last time I was there, it was very accessible. You can walk around Avebury, you can experience the landscape, whereas Stonehenge has been cordoned off. Well, the very first time I went to Stonehenge, I could go and walk up around it, but now it has been cordoned off so that you can't reach the actual stones themselves. So this is also, Avebury is a ritual place. It's a place where rituals were no doubt carried out. And there are long burrows, which are burial sites, which are around all of these Stonehenge and Avebury. It's not just one site. They are connected in some ways. And so you could see maybe from one to the other if you're standing in the right place. So it's not that they are just all alone on their own. There is some sort of a community that exists within the arrangement of these tombs. So that's the spring and summer equinox that happens at Avebury. It was built in around 3000 BC also. Now we go to Newgrange, and it was built in 3200. That's when the construction was started on Newgrange.
3200 BC. Well,
BC.
Yeah, since
Yes.
we don't have.
We aren't at. Yeah,
we
that's
don't
true.
have
But
common
yeah,
era
okay.
yet, so.
And of course, Avebury was 3000 BC as well, or BCE, whatever you prefer. North of Dublin, and there are two other sites that are associated with Newgrange, and that is Noth and Doth. But Newgrange, we don't have forever here this morning, so Newgrange is the one we're going to talk about just for a moment. A passage grave. So there are human remains that are inside the grave. It is a huge circular mound covered with grass, and there are glistening white rocks that ring it. And so it's just amazing. And the artisanship that went into creating the designs on the stones. There are stones that are out in the front of the entryway. And they have all spiral designs that are just really, really remarkable. And the interesting thing about this one then is that on the winter solstice, the sun comes into a stone opening. So there's a stone opening above the roof vent. And there is an opening where the light comes in. And this is located way back at the entry. But when you're walking in there, you have to hunch down to go in there, and then you can stand up when you get into the chamber, the inner chamber. But this light on the 21st of December streaks down that passageway and illuminates that inner chamber. So these people were not only really clever in the way they were able to build things, they were also very, very deeply marking days of the year, days on the calendar. And they knew the significance of that.
And they found meaning in the work in the buildings that they were making.
Yes,
so it's
absolutely.
Like Jacob picked up his rock pillow, placed it on top of some other rocks, and made a little pillar out of it. And even, that's pretty famous. Today there's a dance company, Jacob's Pillow, just maybe an hour west of here. And there's a couple of other things I was thinking about too.
Yeah.
Have been to the Southwest. Now it's called New Mexico, and in the Anasazi lands, there's the structures called kivas, and there's the Great Kiva, and they were community and ceremonial, and that business of being in a circle and having a gathering where you sit in a circle and you whatever you do.
And in the kivas, there is a spot in the center of it that is lowered, right?
I think, yeah. It's been a while.
It's been a while, and I'm
there.
taking this off the top of my head. I've been there too, but I'm quite sure that there is. And that is where earth and, there's a closer connection between earth and the spirit. So,
Well, more?
well, I see a note written on your paper
Yeah.
over here that I'm going to let you talk about.
Today, our nation, the people of the world are mourning the loss of John Lewis, who was a great fighter for equal treatment, equal justice. He's an African American who he was one of the leaders of a famous march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So the bridge itself is a place that has significance. It's not just another piece of concrete. It has significance because of what people brought to it and the risks that they took and the things that happened there all those years ago. In fact, there was a big march across the bridge and a lot of violence brought by one side against the other side. It was a march for freedom, and there were those who didn't want freedom, and that was pretty terrible. The next day, another march went halfway across the bridge and then turned back. One of our members here at this church was on that second march and remembers that quite vividly, as you can imagine. So the idea is that it's not God up there and the spiritual world is somewhere out there, but the spiritual understandings are mixed in together with our understanding of the physical world. And the Celtic people knew that very well.
They did.
And there's much more to be said about the Celtic people.
Thank you for mentioning
Edmund Pettus. And I mean, there are so many locations that were significant, and the spirit of the place still speaks in many cases. The psalm this morning is Psalm 139, and we'll share the reading of it. And this has to do with being known by the Holy One, by the Spirit, by God. And I don't know about you, but it's kind of frightening to be known sometimes. I'm just saying.
Well,
I'm just
that's
talking.
what was going through my mind as you were saying those words.
But here's what the psalmist says. "O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it." So, I don't know, this business of being known, it's not like we get up in the morning and put on our clothes and we dress so that people will know us. We dress so that they will know one part of us, or they'll know the outside of us, I guess.
And I think you could look at this and say, "Oh my goodness, God knows me this well." Well, I think it's a little different to have God know you that well than to have other people know you that well. We kind of hang on to that from other people, but we can't hang on to it from the ever-present universal spirit.
And I think the way of knowing is often stops at the surface.
Yes.
What's the color of your skin? What's your body shape? What's your appearance? What's your achievement? What's your whatever? But that's not the knowing that God is being
Right.
described as having.
Definitely.
And well, there's more to be said here, isn't there? So let's hear some more of the psalm.
Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me become night, Even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you.
I think that in ancient times, I don't know if this is the Christian church, but in pre-Christian Rome, I remember someone describing people were glad when it was a cloudy day because the gods up on Olympus
yes,
wouldn't be
right.
able to see the nasty deeds of humans down below. That's kind of scary.
Well,
But their vision of
it
God,
was.
their visions of God were gods were shaming and gotcha, trying to capture. That's not the one that we've got. I mean, I think we understand that God, the God who sees deeply within us, understands us and accepts us and still treats us as the beloved. Is that not right? I mean,
Yes.
search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts. See if there is any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way of life everlasting. What do we have to say about being known?
Well, I'm thinking of when you were mentioning John Lewis. Surely, you know, his thoughts and his ideas were well known. They were well known, not only by God, but by many, many people. And you know, Dr. Martin Luther King, and boy, you know, you have to admire how they functioned in a world that was not with them, that was not
Yeah.
kind of willing to go along with their being part of the world, which is wow. I mean, that's mind blowing. It really is that.
Yes, and I think the human situation these days, work, politics, education, there's so much emphasis on do you fit our mold for what people are supposed to look like? Is that right?
Yeah.
We label people as they instead of we. We label people as, well,
Other.
as the other. And I'm sorry, they're not the other. They are we, and they are known by God just as we are.
And that is something that we have to keep on working at. And each one of us probably misses the mark from time to time.
Yeah.
But we do have to keep on working at that and try to make the world the most positive place that it can be.
Try and try to be the fullest human beings that we can be. You're pointing at
Yeah, search me, O God, and know my heart.
yeah.
Know what I feel right down in my heart. Test me and know my thoughts. See if there is any wicked way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. So, you know, help me to see where I am making mistakes. Help me to see where I'm wrong. Help me to see how I could be better, because you know my heart and you know my thoughts.
Okay, now here's the other side of that, and we've talked about this in the last day or two, that we may paint a picture of kind of an idealized spiritual person, a good Celt or a good Hebrew or a good Anasazi, and yet we know that the Celts, the Hebrews, and I'm sure the Anasazi, they battled and they did some warlike things. I don't know particularly the history of the Anasazi, but they're standing for all
Aboriginal.
the original people in any part of the world.
Yes.
There was no perfect time or place, and yet they built these beautiful, beautiful structures as a sense of here's where we can get our identity squared away, I think.
And they not only built beautiful structures, but they all had beautiful adornments that they built. And they had beautiful weapons too that they were able to use. So there was a great deal of care that was taken. And I don't,
There's a lot that we don't know yet.
there's a lot that we don't know, and maybe sometimes it's good that we don't know.
But I think these readings speak to me, and they say to me that there's a reading that you can take internally, or that God takes internally, that might not be easily referenced by the external that we present. There's an inner and an outer, and the inner has got a lot of truth to it also.
The inner is where you can usually find those pearls.
Yeah.
That's where the beauty generally lies.
Yeah.
It's in the inner.
Yep.
As opposed to the outer, because it's too easy to make the outer,
Yep.
Make it over. But the inner,
So everybody who is watching right now, wherever you are, we all have this inner, and sometimes it's a child, and sometimes it's a stern adult, and sometimes it's somebody just wanting to run away. I don't know, but we have this inner that is precious and beautiful. And part of what we do on a Sunday morning, I think, is to try to speak to our inner person and remind ourselves that we are all the beloved of the Creator.
amen.
Amen.
Please join us in the Abba Prayer. Holy One, you are always speaking on life's winding path. Open our minds with a loving passion for all you create. Shape our reluctant selves into your freedom. Remind us of the things we need most for sustenance. Settle within us a pattern of forgiving others. Expose us to the forgiveness we need ourselves. When pain shatter our days and dreams, speak to us of hope and healing. Meaning and purpose flow out of you. Your strength sustains us, now and forever. Amen.
We have it on our list. Looking forward, we do have this ministry of taking sandwich sacks to Kate's Kitchen. And each sack has got a wonderful peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it has a bag of chips and some drink and a bar of some kind or other. Energy.
Granola bar,
Granola
and
bars.
the drink is juice. It's a juice.
And we've been taking about 50 of these to Kate's Kitchen. They include it with a hot meal that they're giving, but they don't give hot meals on the weekend. So the sack is intended to help people carry over the weekend. And we're so grateful to be able to keep doing that. And it's partly because of the donations.
It's all because of the donations.
It's all, yeah, it is. The generosity of people who
Yes.
given toward that.
And there, it looks as though it's going to go at least through August.
Yep.
So we have enough funding to go through August. So if anyone feels like getting on board with that, you can call the church office and talk to Andrea. And she will be happy to give you any information, what you need to do for making your payment out for that. So
the other item that we wanted to mention today is because it's 2 weeks from today, there will be the church annual meeting. It would normally be in June, late June in the church with people gathered, but this will be a Zoom meeting. And if you are a member of the church, you will receive information on being a participant in that Zoom meeting. If you have questions that you want to ask based on what you've read in the reports, please get those to the church office also, and they can be answered.
Right. either give a call, call Andrea with your questions, or you can email. And if you do have a bulletin, that is on the back of it's on the back of the bulletin, that information is.
Well, we come toward the conclusion of the service, and we have the Lord's Prayer and a blessing and some music.
Pray with us the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
And actually, before we do the blessing, the last hymn, Praise to the Living God, I think sums up everything we've just been talking about. We could have read this one verse of this hymn, and we probably wouldn't have had to say anything else. So we have to help that to stand out. So the words from that opening verse: praise to the living God, the God of love and light, whose word brought forth the myriad suns and set the worlds in flight, whose infinite design, which we but dimly see, pervades all nature, making all a cosmic unity.
Beautiful.
Isn't that, now I think that, I don't know who wrote the lyrics to this, but the lyricist for this hymn had a deep sense of communication with God and a deep sense of spirituality. Go out in joy and be led back in peace. The mountains and the hills before you shall burst into song, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Go from here in the joy of God, secure in God's presence around you and within you. Amen.